Welcome to Optimal Game State. In this video, I'm going to talk about building a army list for a Legion army in Legions Imperialis. So that's the Space Marines. I am going to say something a little bit controversial, but I'm going to tell you that every other guide has it wrong, and I'm the one who has it right. Now, bear with me. There is a reason for that. What we're going to do first is we're going to have a quick look over some of the troops, and then I'm going to explain how to completely optimize your list for the Space Marines, and then I'm going to explain why that's a bad idea and how you actually should do it instead. All right, so let's get into it. This is the missile launcher squad for the Space Marines. In my opinions, this is absolutely one of the best options you can get. So it's infantry, so it can hold objectives, it can get in buildings. It's got that 20 range, which is fantastic, and it can switch between frag and crack missiles, which means it's very, very effective against infantry or against tanks, as you will. Now, obviously, there are bigger weapons that are going to be better, but for the points, for everything that they do, they are highly, highly, highly effective. They are absolutely great. In this particular case, I have taken the 4 bases and I've added an extra 4 bases, which brings it up to a squad of 70 or 70 points. Now, here's the problem with this. They're a support squad. The way Legion Imperialis is structured is you pick a formation, and then the formation has a list of compulsory detachments and optional detachments. So this is a way of limiting the choices you have. And the basic idea around it is that your core troops are your kind of grunts on the ground. So if you think about it like a modern military, like not everyone is going to be the SAS, not everyone's going to be the Army Rangers or whatever the special forces are. You can't field an entire army of just all special forces all the time. You have to have grunts. Like grunts are actually what makes the army tick, what makes the army work. And there's tons of them. So in this case, your core here are going to be your tactical squads. So your tactical squads for Space Marines are your grunts. And you need to have 2 squads of tacticals before you can have a single support. Well, you must have another support, but before you have these extra options. So if you take those 2 squads of tacticals, then it opens up, essentially 3 supports there. So what we can do is we can fit in the 3 different missile launcher groups, and then that's how we have it. There is a quirk, however, and I kind of think this is a mistake. So the tactical squads can be expanded out with upgrades, and the upgrades can be plasma, missile launcher, terminators, or submarines, and you can take it up to 4 times, and they add an extra 2 bases each. So you can basically add 8 bases worth of missile launchers to this tactical squad. The tactical squad now costs 25 points more than the missile launcher squad does. But it does have a couple of advantages. So those 4 tactical stands, so those 20 Marines, act as kind of a blade of armor, so they kind of add more wounds. They're not really going to be effective because you can see that Legion bolter is only 8-inch range, and you're probably going to be firing at things at 20-inch range. So you're going to be firing with the missile launchers, and the bolters are not really going to be doing anything while they're doing that because everything needs to fire the same target. Weirdly, again, this is another quirk, doesn't really make too much of a difference, but the combat assault factor, so the CAF is 1 higher because it's based off the tactical legionnaires rather than the missile launchers. What this ends up being is you have a list that looks like this. So you need to take 1 HQ. Both of your cores can be packed out with missile launchers, and all your supports can be packed out with missile launchers. This is only 425 points, so you could take 2 of these in a 1,000 point list. These guys are super, super effective. So it's like a 20-inch range. They can, take objectives. They can stick in buildings. It is super, super effective. However, if you ever see this and like your opponent's playing this, you should probably walk away. And I'm going to explain why now. This is a sprue from the infantry box. There are 2 sprues in each box. As you can see, there are 6 models there. So that's 5 normal missile launchers and then 1 command guy for it. So all of the Legion bases are designed to have 6. So you'll have 1 commander, and then you can build a base with commander or without commander. I think typically within the background, I think for every 10, 1 of them will be a commander. So that lets you do that. Either way, the point here is each sprue only gets you one base of missile launchers. You only get 2 bases in the box. So, if you want to do something like this, you're talking about 20 boxes. Now, the prices up there are straight from GW. Obviously, if you're going to your local store, you'll probably get it for a little bit cheaper. But, $50 by 20 is, what, $1,000? And that's just for this Legion Demi Company, so 425 points. So you're probably talking about $2,000 for a 1,000-point army that completely does this. The game isn't designed for this kind of play, basically. What I'm saying in this video is that we shouldn't be looking at the formations and building the formations out to be optimal. What we should instead be doing is looking at the boxes and then working out what we can do with the boxes. So as an example, this is from one of the GW books. This is a ridiculous list. It's basically, oops, all Terminators. And it ends up being 39 boxes, maybe 40. So what's that? We were saying 20 was $1,000. So this is $2,000 worth of miniatures. And more importantly, a ton of stuff gets left to the side. We don't want to do it this way. So this is a case where, they built a very thematic, very fun-looking list where they picked and choose based on the formation and optimized within the formation, and then went out and then asked the studio to give them the model they needed. We don't have that luxury. Now, if you are 3D printing, that is an option. You can definitely do this. I would not recommend it because I don't think it is... I don't think it's fair on the players you're going to be playing against who aren't also doing that. Now, if you have an environment where it is complete degeneracy and everyone is 3D printing exactly what they want, by all means, go for it. That's a different world from what I consider the normal standard play, which is where people are actually buying in the boxes and then working through as GW intended. Okay, so the first thing is I don't recommend getting boxes singly, so it's the infantry. And the reason is you only get 2 missile launchers or 2 Terminators, but you need 4 for an actual squad. And I think, as I discussed before, the way you can pad out those tactical squads, I think that was a mistake. It doesn't seem to be in the larger 28mm horse heresy game. Like, tacticals have options. They don't seem to have options where you can add 8 missile launcher stands to it. Actually, in that case, that's like 40 extra troops on top of your 20. I think they added that in because the core box didn't have enough to actually field full units of plasma missile launcher or assault or so on. So I think maybe they should just get rid of that. That would be a start. But yeah, my point here is buy 2 boxes and then you'll get 4 command. You'll get 16 tactical, which will make up 4 of the core slots. Now, this is if you only use the minimum, which is 4 bases, 4 stands for each detachment. So you can make 4 detachments. And then each of the rest will make 1 support detachment, apart from the dreadnoughts, who will make 2 support dreadnoughts. One point on the dreadnoughts, and we'll talk about this later, is they come in 2 sets of weapons, and you don't get to pick. In each box you get 2 with the las cannons and 2 with the assault cannons. You just have to go with that. I don't like playing that mix. The ranges are kind of awkward. Really what you want to do is you want to get the 2 boxes so you can have 4 las cannons and 4 assault cannons and put them in 2 separate squads. Then they can pick their optimal target range for each of them, and they can work separately. I think that's something to kind of keep in mind for a lot of the different options here. You'll often find that you want to mono-weapon your units. That will make them more effective, and it'll make the game a lot easier to play. All right, what can we do with this? So the Legion Demi Company formation is kind of the standard formation. Now what we can do here is we can take one of those command squads, put it in the HQ. So we got 4 of those tactical so we have actually 2 in the compulsory, and there is 1 in the optionals as well. So what we could do is, you can kind of tamper with the numbers. You've got 16 to play with, and you've got kind of 3 detachments you need to get them into. But the key part here is we've only got 3 support options. So 1's compulsory and 2 are the optional ones. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe different places you can put them. So how are we going to do that? Well, you can put the plasmas into one of the tacticals. They actually operate quite similar. You can put the missile launchers into one of the tacticals, and they will primarily be a missile launcher squad. And the plasma guns are actually kind of nice because they have similar ranges to the bolters, whereas missile launchers, you're just going to leave your bolters to the side and then you're going to focus on missile launchers. The 4 assault can then take up a support slot. The 4 terminators can take up a support slot. And then the 8 dreadnoughts can all be lumped into one single support slot. And then you are running almost everything from those 2 boxes and you're good to go. I think you're missing maybe the 3 commands. And that's about it. And actually, as a side note, you can, if you're tactical, I guess, with it, you can take some of the models from the extra 2 command stands and use them to pad out some of the spare models that you might have from the other boxes, from the other ones, to create some extra stands. The other way you can go is you can actually make 2 demi companies. So this is a lot more reasonable because you now have 6 support options. So you can do the plasma, missile launcher, assault, and terminators, and then those 2 dreads all as separate. That's basically the 6. You're using 2-year command, which is great, and then you need to split all of those tacticals into those 4 minimal compulsory ones. But this gets you basically using everything out of those 2 boxes, and is super, super good. So this, I think, is a really good place to start. You're just looking at the 2 infantry boxes, and then you've got a ton of boots on the ground. Okay, so this is where most people will have started. So this is the main core box. I'm not really going to talk about the Titans or the Solar Auxilia. I'm just going to focus on the Legion infantry for the time being. Again, I reckon because there's only one stand, so 1 box worth, so 2 sprues worth of infantry, I recommend getting an extra box to go along with this, and that's what I have there. This would have been a great double purchase, I think, but I think the Warhounds, you don't really need more than 2 unless you play Titanicus. And if you're playing Titanicus, then you probably already have some Warhounds because they come as part of the box options for that. Anyway, what I wanted to focus on here is the fact that we're adding in 3 Predators and 2 Sicarians. If we are doing a single demi company, we don't actually have enough battle tank options for that. Instead, we must go for the double demi company to get those extra slots. Another approach is if we pick up the Krautos, so this gets us the heavy armor slot, we now have those 2 battle tank options where we can actually put them into play here. Notice on this one that there are no special abilities. So on the demi company, there were as we'll see in a bit, there is a option to give rhinos to all your infantry as dedicated transport, and they give bonuses to non-infantry if they're contesting objectives with some of their own supporting infantry. This doesn't have bonuses, but this does expand out your tank options, so you are actually able to fit in the tanks you want. And yeah, for this, it's just 2 battle tank detachments and then 1 heavy armor, which is very, very nice. The box here for the Krautos does come with weapon options, and you are stuck with the sponsons. There's no way around that. So whatever sponsons you pick, personally, I always go for the heavy bolters on these, but you can switch out that main weapon between the 2 options if you want. Just don't glue it in, and it'll basically pop out and pop out back in again. The other approach you can go for is to get the battle group for the Legion Astartes. Now, as before, you're getting 1 box of infantry, so I would suggest getting an extra box of infantry. That rounds things out, and yeah, brings your support squads to 4. We have a couple of other things. So we talked about the Krautos at the top, and they fit into that heavy tank role. So a lot of this is, it'll either fit into that 1 or that 2 part option, depending on what you want. Actually, I'm going to skip on to the next in a second. But we also have a single box of what are the Vanguard called? The Outriders, speeder bikes and land speeders. And then we get a single box of the support, which has a bunch of more dreads of various kinds and has rapiers and tarantulas. Okay, but let's step back a bit. We're going to look at those rhinos first. So the rhinos in here are fantastic. Rhinos, if you've already got the infantry boxes, rhinos are actually a great option to make those infantry a little bit more mobile, and then they tend to be just used as a blocking stop after that. But you can see here, so they are dedicated support, so you don't have to tie up that or either of those 2 transport detachment slots. So you can actually hold that off for something else if you wanted. The rhinos, they get your guys where you need to get fast. In this box, we also have this. I can't quite remember what this box is called, but it's got 4 land speeders, 4 javelins, 4 outriders, and 6 scimitar bikes. Again, another frustration with this is that the the weapons are halved in each. So each of the land speeders are 50-50. So you're going with just this one box, you're going to end up with a mixed list of land speeders, which is annoying. I'm not particularly a fan of that. But as we'll see in a second, you can kind of get over it. But we have all Vanguard, and it is the scimitar jet bikes, so the floaty ones at the bottom. They split into two detachments of 3. And that's super, super good, because this particular formation, the Legion Skyhunter Phalanx, has exactly that. We are required to put our land speeder, our javelin, and our 2 scimitar jet bikes in those compulsory detachments. For some reason, the Outriders aren't allowed in there. I'm not quite sure why. So they'll go in that extra Vanguard slot, and then again, they don't get those special rules for whatever reason. They don't get the outflank rule. It's fine. Light armor, there's only one light armor option, and then air support. So there is a bundle of things that we'll see in a second. Air support, actually, interestingly, is where you get the transports as well as the flyers that'll actually do some damage. But yeah, this particular one single box is great because it fits into its own detachment all by itself. Now, unfortunately, the actual detachments themselves, so the models, aren't particularly great, as I understand it. I think you're paying a lot for speed and maybe not getting a lot of bang for your buck. So I think if you're being super optimal, you might be better off going for more infantry. But this is a fun game. We don't need to super min-max it. We just need to have a little bit of fun. This is a sport box, so it has basically 2 detachments of support and 2 detachments of Bastion. So this is the first place we've started getting Bastions. So the Bastions are the original dreads and then the tarantulas. So basically they are in place, I guess. I mean, you can move the dreads, but they're long range shooty things that are supposed to be kind of defending, if that makes sense. So stay in your back rear and then shoot things out of far as kind of hope. And then we've got the Leviathan Dreads, who, from what I can tell, they're for smoking buildings a lot. But they should just be, chunky, hard to kill dreads. And then, the rapiers are kind of similar to the tarantulas in a certain extent. This one's a bit awkward because, again, you really need 2 boxes of this. So you need 2 boxes because the dreads, all of the dreads, are paired. So there's 2 of each loadout. Then to get a fully mono weapon loadout, detachment, you need to get a second box. So my recommendation would be 2. But let's have a look here. So the Legion Garrison Force is the kind of place where you will be looking at this, because it's got 3 Bastion slots and 3 support slots, which means it's a lot more likely that you'll be able to fully use this box. Now, there is a Bastion slot in the Demi Company, so if you want to just buy this box and then kind of fit that in, especially if you're going for a double Demi Company, you can put those dreads and those tarantulas in straight away. You might struggle, I think, maybe to find enough space for the extra support, but you're still good. And again, this Legion Garrison Force doesn't have any bonuses, doesn't have any special abilities. From what I understand, it is quite popular with the Alpha Legion because it means you can get some of those tarantulas infiltrated and basically on the board straight away. But yeah, that is what it is. Okay, so yeah, I think the box should be bought in 2s. The Legion Garrison Force is a way to open up more Bastion slots, which is why it's kind of relevant to this. If you wanted to pick drop pods, what's notable here, okay, well, we have this particular formation for it. You don't necessarily have to use a formation. You can have them take up, I believe it is it's a transport slot. So you have 2 slots for it in the normal Demi Company, but yeah, depending on what you might want to use and how big. The one thing that is notable here is for this particular formation, the absolute minimum is you need to buy 2 boxes. So each box comes with 4 drop pods. Each drop pod has 2 bases worth of space, and then to actually take the minimum requirements of this particular formation, you need to have that 13 worth of space. And you might need, if you want the dreads, you'll need to buy another box that'll have dreads. The dreads, again, come with 4. I think they also have 2 bases that they'll take themselves within the dreads. I might have to double check that one. But yeah, the point here, if you want these drop pods, this is probably the formation you're looking at. You don't necessarily have to take it, but just be aware that the transport you take needs to kind of match off with what you're actually taking on. Slightly better constructed are these termites. So a box will get you 8. So it's the same kind of configuration as the previous one, but you get all of you need within that one box, which is very, very cool. I mean, it's not as cool as coming down drop pods, but the box structure is at least a little bit better. This is another option. So this is the Legion Heavy Assault Spearhead. This is basically where you're taking Spartans or Land Raiders to deploy your troops in. Now, there is a quirk on this one, so you can see that the requirements involve Legion Terminators, so you can't just pick any support or any infantry. Those 2 compulsory slots have to be Terminators. Terminators are bulky, which means they take up 2 slots, so base of our 4 bases effectively ends up being 8 of the requirement. So there are 2 different boxes for these. So the Spartans, you get 4 of them, they're each 5, so that's 10. 20 in total. So that could account for your 2 Legion Terminators, but you're not going to have enough room for your support. And then the other option is 5 times 2, which is just the 10 in the Land Raiders. So, that might be a case where you get the double box and you end up taking the Legion Terminators in the Spartans. What is that? Yeah, and then you put the rest of them in the Land Raiders. Anyway, just something to be aware of. So these are what we're doing here is we're looking at a box and we're seeing how it fits into a formation. Obviously, with these, you will need to have the component pieces already. And in this particular one, for this, the base requirement is you need 8 bases of Terminators. And to get 8 bases of Terminators, so you need to get at least 4 infantry boxes. So that kind of gives you an idea. But this is what I'm talking about. We're not building. We're not looking at a formation and then building out that formation. What we're instead doing is we're looking at boxes and then we're putting those boxes into formations. This is a similar kind of scenario. This is the Legion Aerial Assault. Again, these transport slots are available within the Demi Company formation, although this is the air support option. There's only one air support option, as I recall. So, your kind of options are limited. The Thunderhawk is a fantastic model to put together. It is very effective on the board. I'm less impressed with the Storm Eagles, to be honest. But yeah, so you can see here your numbers. Now, the Vanguard is a requirement in this particular formation, which means you would have had to previously pick up some bikes of some kind to fit in there. And then, you're going to have your HQ, and you're going to have your core, and you're going to have your support from your double infantry blocks. So if you wanted to do an all aerial force, this is basically how you would go about it. A Storm Eagle will take the HQ. Actually, putting the HQ and one of the supports in one of the Storm Eagles is kind of nice because it comes out to exactly 5, and then you can put a double unit of 4 into that Thunderhawk and just dump a ton of guys down when you need to. Anything else to say on those? No. Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, now that air support slot also has other options. So those are the transports we talked about. On the left-hand side, these are the Fire Raptors, which as models I absolutely love, but points-wise per cost, they're super ineffective. So basically, the amount of money, that real-world money you're spending on buying these models versus the points they cost is not great, and versus their actual effectiveness is maybe not great. On the right-hand side, we have the Siphons. The Siphons come in a box of 6, which is great. In my case, I've actually split it. So I've taken 3 of those Siphons, which I think is probably all you're going to really need. And I put them in my Iron Warriors, and 3 of them are going to my White Scars detachment, which will go along with my Loyalist contingent. These are Interceptors. This is the only Interceptor option that the Space Marines have, without getting some auxiliary or doing something like that. But basically, the Interceptors are the special rule for Interceptor lets them fire after they've moved. So it can be a really good way. So if there's that Thunderhawk gunship, it just has moved into position, you can fly in and basically shoot it up before it gets a chance to do anything, is the idea. So that's the Interceptors. So the Xiphons I really like. I think they're super, super good, and they're very, very nice model. just to look at some of the other slots. So the light armor only have the sabers, which I think have 2 weapon options. And then there's nothing for the artillery. So right now the artillery slot is kind of wasted. Battle tanks have a few different options. So we've got Sicarians on the left and right, and it's the Arcus and Punisher variants on the left. And then in the middle, you've got the classic Predator. So the Predator comes in a box of 6, and you fill them in 3s, which is super, super good. And then, as far as I'm aware, the Sicarians get fielded in 2s. So each of these boxes are kind of standalone. You can do them as one single battle tank option all by itself. Plenty of places that they fit in, and as I mentioned before, they're super good with the armored version. One of the things that we have started seeing recently is faction-specific formations. And so this is one that I'm particularly interested in myself, because I'm building an Iron Warriors list to go along with, or to face off against, my Imperial Fist list. Note that in this, it's not just a matter of having the right detachments. You also need to have the right weapons. When I was doing this, I did actually build my Krautos the way I always do, by sticking them with heavy bolters. I don't think it's an autocannon. But this actually needs to be las cannons all the way through. So yeah, the sponsons and the hull need to have las cannons. Similarly, the Spartans need to have hull-mounted las cannons and sponson-mounted quad las cannons. Keep an eye on that, is what I'm saying. There might be options that you wouldn't prefer, that you have to go with, just because that's the requirements for this very specific one. Not everyone has these yet. There's an Iron Warriors one, there's an Alpha Legion one, there's a Iron Hands one, and I can't remember what the other one has, but there's very few at the moment. So unfortunately, you just kind of have to build what you have, and then when you get round to building these, you're going to have to probably buy an extra box. So for me, while I do have 4 Krautos ready to go, they're the wrong loadout for this, so I'll have to buy another 4 Krautos if I are, and you only get to use 3 of them. Oh yeah, if I want to go with this particular route. Now, as you can see, they're in the expanded detachment size. So to actually get that, I will need to have an extra 2 Spartans. So I have 6. I have 4 of them, so that'll bring out to 6, which again is like half a box. It's going to be frustrating. And I'll need, more importantly, 4 Legion Terminator models. So each of those is 2 infantry boxes. So right now I'm 2 Legion Terminator models off, or sorry, 4 models. So 2 infantry boxes off getting the main requirements. So I'm going to try aim for that eventually, but we're not there yet. Anyway, my point here was to have a focus on the actual weapon options when these come out. The last attachment that I want to have a look at is one that recently came out with the Dark Mechanicum book. So it's Brethren of Iron. Now, the point of this is to let you use some of your of the Mechanicum models in your Legion army without having to go out. So it is a Legion army support formation. Now, support formations are kind of new. You can only have 1 support formation for each main formation you have. But as far as I'm aware, they do count as being within the Astartes. So you're not spending a bunch of points out of your 30% that you want to kind of keep for, feeling a Titan or whatever that might be. What's weird about this, though, is the HQ must be a Legion Astartes. And I've seen some of the people do some very cool conversions where you'll add a few that had mech options to it, just to signify that this is a special Brethren of Iron HQ command. So it'll be a mixture of Legion and Mechanicum, which, very, very cool. And would be very, very thematic for the Iron Warriors. Now, those 2 other core options can be either a tactical or, from the Mechanicum, a Talax cohort detachment. In this video, I'm not going to be worrying about all those other things. I just want to make the point here that for HQ and 2 tacticals, you have a very, 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 very small and cheap option to get in a different Legion. So normally what you'll do is you'll build out, as I've been doing, an Iron Warriors list. But if you want, you can also include some other options. On the right-hand side, I've got all the ones that I felt were relevant. So the first one is the Space Wolves. With the Space Wolves, they basically give a bubble around them to stop people outflanking them. And no infiltrate too? Yeah, no infiltrate within 16 inches and no outflanking them within 8 inches. So infiltration is a big part of the game, and this is very small setup. So 95 points in total. And then you can take you've got those 3 units. You've got the HQ and you've got the 2 core. They don't have to be beside each other. You can put them into the various parts to protect from infiltration. Similarly, we've got the Emperor's Children. Just having them means you can choose to win initiative for 1 turn. The Death Guard can mark a piece of terrain as dangerous terrain, so basically they've corrupted its part. And then the last 2 I've got are the Alpha Legion and the Raven Guard. In both, in this case, they'll let all 3 of those infiltrate. So often with the Alpha Legion, what you want to be doing is you want to be infiltrating like tarantulas or dreadnoughts or something super, super scary. But this will let you infiltrate a bunch of guys, and it's for a relatively low cost. So, I mean, you can actually get 2 of these Brethren of Iron out of a single box. No, sorry, 16 is the double. Yeah, you can make a Brethren of Iron for a single box, and then have all the supports elsewhere. So I guess if you're buying additional boxes to kind of round out your support squads, then these might be things you end up doing. So if you get to a point where you've got way too many tacticals and way too many HQ, and say you're playing Imperial Fist, you know, it might be worth your while getting some Raven Guard and getting some Space Wolves. And, you know, if you're trader, do the opposite, and just these will give you extra options for less than 100 points to kind of do something cool. Okay, that I think is all the formations we've looked at. I think we've mentioned at least all the boxes. My core point here is build out of the boxes. Don't build within the formations, if that makes sense. Once you do that, eventually you'll get to the point where you will have enough models for the formations. But what you should always be doing is kind of thinking about how to maximize the use of the models that you have, rather than focusing too much on what models you should be getting. Because unfortunately, the way they've structured it, you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you're looking for because things are grouped up. Now, it would be absolutely fantastic if we had the option, if we could buy just a box of Terminators, but that's not something that they're currently offering. Maybe it'll be something down the line. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope this was somewhat useful to you. And I hope that relatively controversial statement of saying everyone's doing it wrong at the get-go has been at least a little bit backed up. So thank you very much for listening. Oh, and keep an eye out. I'll have another video going up soon enough where I will take myself from an Iron Warriors army from sprues to table in just a couple of days, which is something I did in December, and then we will spend a little bit of time after that just finishing off doing a lot of hazard tribes and making it look good. So keep an eye out for that, and thank you very much for listening. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible 2-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.